Hello, good morning, and welcome to Freelance Mum Facebook Live. I'm Faye, founder of Freelance Mum, and if you like what you see and hear and feel and everything else, perhaps not taste today, then do come and check us out and join our free Facebook group, The Mothership. You can try us free for 30 days and then sign up for £15 a month. But before we get to all of that, I'd like to welcome my guest today. It's Robin Waite. He's the founder of Fearless Business, to talk about goal setting. First of all, I hope it's not too late to say Happy New Year to you, Robin.
Oh, it's never too late. I think you can say Happy New Year all the way through January, can't you?
I think you can. Then let's do it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Is it off to a good start for you? Is it busy?
This is my busiest month of the year typically. So yeah, so we're kind of everybody's had that 2 weeks off over Christmas and New Year, and they're thinking, right, it's about time I sorted my business out. So yeah, so I'm inundated with sort of inquiries and things like that at the moment, which is lovely. But it's kind of like one of those things where you kind of get through January and you're like, right, I'm ready for a break again. So yeah.
Good. It's a good place to be. It's a happy problem.
Absolutely.
We like that. So Robin, we're here today to talk about goal setting. And obviously that's a really important thing as small business owners, but it also can feel a bit vague, a bit like, oh, hang on, what am I supposed to be saying? How do I actually set a goal? Because we all want to grow, we all want to succeed, we all want to, be ambitious, but those can just feel like words. How do you actually sit down and nail down what your specific goals are, and then perhaps more importantly, work backwards and actually make them happen?
Yeah, I mean, so a lot of people at this time of year, they're kind of resetting their goals and kind of journaling and things like that, but they'll be writing quite vague things in for those goals. Things like, I want to help more people this year, or I want to make more money, or I want to move house this year, or something like that. And it's like, imagine going out into and asking the universe without going too woo-woo for more people. Do you think the universe knows whether to give you 2 more people or 2 million more people? Imagine if 2 million customers showed up on your doorstep. Great problem to have, but because you'd be massively oversubscribed. But also there's a lot of logistical problems which potentially come with that. So we have to be a little bit more specific when it comes down to setting our goals. So, rather than saying, I want to make more money, let's say you're earning, I don't know, £25,000 a year. Why don't you ask the universe for £50,000 this year and then see what happens? And the nice thing about that is when you start to get it, and I talk a lot about money, and it's not actually about the money. I'm not being capitalistic, by the way. It's more so because like numbers are something which we can visualize and get a feeling for. And they tend to be quite specific, especially when you start using numbers. So it's not necessarily about the money as such and driving around in Lamborghinis and things like that. This is actually more so just about having something clear and specific that we can then measure against. So if you then want to, make 50K this year, well, if you make 49,000, you've fallen slightly short of it. If you make 51,000, you've overachieved your goal, you're round about there. And it just gives you something that then you can kind of check back in on periodically and make sure you're on track. The other thing as well about goal setting, when people are saying, I want more people to help, I want more money in my business, it's also not just about the specificity. It's about the fact that what they've done is you have like three time zones, okay, past, present, and future. And many people operate in past and present because that's what they know, and this is how they feel about themselves sort of right now. That this is what they know is going on right now. It's obviously very hard to predict what's going to happen in the future, and so what that does is it tends to create a little bit of fear of the unknown, basically. Like, imagine if you're typical sort of childhood fears around sort of fear of the dark. You leave your cupboard open and it's fear like, oh, I can't see what's there, so I don't know what's there, and then all the brain sort of things start going off. But the grown-up version of this in business is I can't set a goal of 100K this year because I don't know how I'm going to get there, and I don't know what it's going to feel like when I get there, and I don't know if that's really me. And there's all these fears wrapped up in that statement, again, because it's quite vague. So one of the things which and the other thing as well, because it's projected out there in the future, what we've inadvertently done is we've given ourselves permission to put it off now. So we don't really do anything about it now. We're like, oh, it's okay. I'm gonna earn the money in by the end of December, so I just won't do anything today because I've got another 365 days, and then the next day goes, and the next day, and the next day, and then you get to March, and you're like, oh, but Easter's coming up, so we'll just chill out for a couple of weeks, and then I'll just kick back on after that, and so it kind of carries on. And then we get to December, and we're like, that goal I set for myself.
Mhm.
Oh no, I haven't done any of the stuff. Right. So what we have to do is there's two things which we need to do when we're setting goals, especially sort of future-based goals. And you mentioned something which is very important. Like, you set your goal and then you work your way backwards. But first of all, you've actually got to put the fight, flight, and freeze, like the emotions, to bed. Because what's going to happen is where that fear of the unknown kicks in, it's like any new piece of information you get given. It triggers I think it's the reticular activator system in the back of your brain. So a new piece of information comes in from one of your five senses, and at that point, you have like three filters. Okay, so you have the reptile brain, the monkey brain, and then the empire builder brain. And the reptile brain is the one which is just like it gets that new piece of information, and fight, flight, freeze kicks in, and it's like, ah! It's like shit scared. I have to run away from it. I have to fight it, or you're just so scared you just freeze, right? That's kind of where our natural, like, instinctive behaviors come from. And generally, many people still haven't learned to control a lot of those when they get into adulthood, because it's based on, again, past experiences, which, generally speaking, probably a majority may not have been pleasant. And so that's what drives, that's actually designed as that's our safety mechanism to keep us safe, basically. We remember a lot more of the bad things than we do necessarily the good things. It's just a natural part of human instinct, survival instinct, basically. So then we just have to rationalize it. Like, the reality is, when you're like in business, it's not like you're on the plains of Africa, where you have to walk down to the river to get water, and you could get eaten by hippos and lions and crocodiles and things like that. That's actually quite dangerous. In business, the reality is there's only two things that are going to happen this year that could potentially go wrong. One is things don't work out financially, which isn't great, but it's not a disaster, because there's always ways to mitigate that. And the second thing is, maybe we lose face, maybe we look a bit stupid, maybe we do a launch and nobody like follows us, likes our post, signs up to our thing, right? But like, then actually the reality is, like, nobody's really seen us if that happens. So the only person we look stupid to is ourselves, right? But in our mind, we're thinking, oh, this is a disaster, and everybody thinks I'm an idiot. But the reality is, no, everybody else is too busy doing their own stuff. They don't really care about your stuff. So it's only internally something which you end up kind of going round in the washing machine and beating yourself up over this stuff. So we just start to have to kind of reframe that. So the second filter is actually the monkey brain. So the monkey brain.
I wanted to ask about that. I was like, right, we've got reptile, and we've got a monkey. Is this when you've got those monkeys on your back? Is that right?
Well, the monkeys are just, where, I can't remember who it was, but famous philosopher said, if you put 1,000 monkeys in a room with typewriters, eventually they'll type out a page or a sonnet from Shakespeare, right? So it's that notion of just doing the monkey, just doing the do. It's the thing. The monkey brain is the thing which gets us up in the morning, makes us have a shower, makes us brush our teeth. When we get comfortable doing things like social media, it makes us do our reels in the morning, and it makes us, so it does all of the stuff that we do habitually and by routine. That's the monkey brain's job. It's just there just to do monkey see, monkey do, and off it goes, right? The empire builder bit of the brain. So when you've gone through, you have to go through reptile brain, monkey brain, and then finally you get to empire builder brain. And this is where you use the frontal lobes of your brain, which is where, like, all of the creative juices happen. And as it sounds, that's the bit where we have these amazing ideas, which ultimately, end up formulating the idea for your business this year and the strategy you're going to do to implement it and all of the activities. And you can break it down and you feel motivated. And you know that when you start to dip and you don't feel motivated, your empire builder brain is like, no, come on, we've got this. So it's like that really positive part of the brain that kind of, creates growth. But you'll go through the first two filters first. And so what happens is, when you project a goal that is in the future and the fear kicks in, it's rare that you can get to the empire builder part of the brain. So we have to reprogram that. So I'm going to stick with the money. So if I want to earn £100,000 this year, I don't say I want to earn £100,000 in by the end of 2022. What we have to do is we have to trick the reptile brain into thinking that it already exists and it's perfectly safe. Okay. And the way to do that is, and again, this isn't woo woo. This is just, we've all heard it. When you say your goal to somebody else and you put it out there, I'm going to write a book. Right now, we've got friends who are going to hold us to account and actually say, well, I don't want to look stupid. I'm going to have to write the damn book now because I said I'm going to do it. Right. So inevitably, just the mere act of saying that we're writing a book will help us to start to bring it out into the universe and do the thing that we said we're going to do. now it's very subtle, you probably didn't notice the language there. Okay, if I say my goal this year is to write a book by the end of the year, what I've done is I've put it off and it's happening in 12 months time. Right. The language I used then was I am writing a book. Yeah, or I
So
am
it's
an author.
present tense.
Present brings it right down into the present moment. And so at that point, then the brain is, and you have to practice these affirmations for like 30 days, 60 days, literally every day. Write down your goals and make them super specific. And I'm going to come back to that again in a second. Make them super specific, but bring them into the present. So I am earning £100,000. I am an author. I am writing a book. If you have aspirations to, I don't know, move from either a town to a different town, or maybe move from a 2-bedroom house to a 4-bedroom house. I own a 4-bedroom house. So it's like very much like you're already doing it. And you 1 or 2 times a day, morning and evening, you just sit there in front of the mirror and you read out your affirmations 2 or 3 times. And then eventually you'll start to remember them, and you'll be sat there. And I remember, this is a story. Everybody's going to probably think I'm a bit weird now, Faye. So, but this is, like when I first started out coaching and I got taught this methodology, I was so determined with my business, like in year 1 of my coaching practice, and I'd set out all my goals of, 6-figure coach and 50 events this year and podcast and this, that, and the other, and I was going to do it all. And then this one moment, things didn't really feel like they were going to plan for me. And I'm about 6 months into this plan, and I've been crushing. I've been doing really bloody well, actually, and it's going really well. But I wasn't quite achieving what I'd set out to achieve. And somebody cut me up in traffic, and I got really angry, right? But all of a sudden, because I'd been going through this process with my coach of doing these affirmations, but in that moment of like dark energy, this massive burst of positivity came out, and I was like, and normally you'd be like effing and blinding and screw you, you cut me up, and this time I was like, I am earning 100,000. I am, and it was like all of my positive affirmations came out, and then lo and behold, I just created this massive burst of energy, and it was a really enlightening experience. And just bizarrely, I think because it was just this big burst, like everything started to click in that moment, because it was just like, right, I'm doing this, come hell or high water, I am doing this, and that's the most important thing.
So there's loads, Robin, you're just this great source of energy and information. I kind of want to get into all of it all at once. It's really cool. First of all, let's talk about those 3. We've got the reptile, the monkey, and the empire builder. And I think we can all relate to having a bit of all of those elements. So, for example, from my personal experience, started this year, I'm like, yes, I am the empire builder. I am doing this thing called 2022, and I'm reaching my goals. I had 3-4 really good days. And then guess what? On day 4, whatever, I just felt a bit depleted. I've been putting a lot out there. I was like, I'm really, I don't know if that was that must have been the reptile then saying, how do you then, you've got this triangle, you've got these 3 things. We are, after all, human beings as well. So we do want to empire build. We do want to be this empire. We can do all of that. But actually that high energy stuff can be exhausting. So what do you do in those moments where, you're just a human being and you're feeling a bit like, what do I do next without letting the reptile in?
Just stop.
Okay.
It's that simple.
Yeah.
Stop and think. It's just that is actually the empire builder bit of the brain working there, because reptile part of the brain would actually have made you probably just go and curl up under a duvet and be completely useless for a day, right? But actually you were kind of like, what you did is the right thing. You listened to, you tuned into what your body was telling you. You acknowledge that feeling, positive or negative, doesn't matter. It's always helpful to acknowledge feelings, because they're there to give us a bit of useful information and tell us something. And then it's a matter of whether, like, what a lot of people do is they then try and fix, if there's a problem, they then try and fix it. So we end up in this. So think of a triangle of behaviors, emotions, and thoughts, and it's a vicious cycle. So most of our emotions and behaviors are actually governed by our thought process. So imagine if you set really lofty goals and you felt that it was too overwhelming, and your brain's just like, oh my, I can't do this. That's the thought process. Emotionally, what's that going to do? It's going to make you feel drained. It's going to make you feel down. It's going to make you feel like low and not energetic, depleted, right? So what's your behavior going to be? It's going to reinforce that feeling and that thought. The behavior is going to be, I'm going to hide, like I'm going to retreat. Okay, so it's a negative behavior,
Mm.
which then makes you feel worse, because then guilt starts to creep in.
Mm.
So we're back to thoughts again. Oh God, I said I was going to do that thing for that person, I didn't do it, and then that makes you feel worse. So you retreat more, and so there's this vicious cycle which happens. And the thing is just to one you have to tune into your thoughts and emotions, be more aware of them, and if you're just busy all the time, you get no time to think about stuff. You get no time to tune into those emotions, because you're just like, your adrenaline kicks in, especially on the feeling side of things, and you just do stuff, and then you just get absolutely worn out, and it just gets to a point of, like, that's where you get burnout, and breakdowns happen, and just you end up, your body normally just physically, you just get a cold, or in this case probably COVID or something like that. You physically, your body just gives up as well eventually, because it's just all of that adrenaline is just gone. It's just like worn you out. But what you can do is, at any point in between the steps in that cycle, thoughts, emotions, behaviors, you can kind of create a short, like, fuse the circuit, so to speak. So when you start to have that negative thought and that negative emotion coming up, so I can't remember if we talked about this before, but I like to personify I call them the saboteurs in our lives, in our businesses. I like to personify them. Okay, so if, for example, your negative thoughts and emotions cause for you to procrastinate, right? Let's give it a name. Let's call him, like, Procrastination Pete, right? And imagine if you were down the pub, and, like, you're with your mates and then your girlfriends, and then procrastinate. You see him walk into the bar. Pete walks into the bar, and you're, oh God, it's Procrastination Pete. Oh, I don't really want it to be there. And every time he sees you, he's like, oh, hi, Faye. It's me, Procrastination Pete. Can I come and sit at your table and have a drink with you? And you're like, oh, really? You don't want to be rude. So you let him sit at your table. You've only got an hour with your girlfriends, and then he's been there for like 50 minutes. Now, oh God, I've only got 10 minutes with my friends now. And you're just too nice to actually tell Procrastination Pete to do one, right? Imagine different scenario. And this is where you create that shortcut. And this is why it's useful to have that personification. It's very hard to actually label our thoughts and emotions a lot of the time. So if you actually create a person out of it, a personality out of it, because we have our saboteurs. The same saboteurs keep on showing up. Frustrated Freddie shows up. Procrastination Pete shows up. I don't know. You've got all these different personalities that show up periodically in our lives. The worst thing you can do is just allow them to come in and sit there, right? So what we do is we do acknowledge them. We say, hi, Pete. We notice Pete's turning with his pint. He's about to come and sit at our table. And we say, I'm really sorry, Pete, but I'm with my girlfriends tonight. I've only got an hour with them. Can you go and sit somewhere else tonight? So we actually acknowledge Pete's existence. He's there to tell us something. Like, that's his job, to give us a clue. Our natural instinct as human beings, survival instinct, is to take a fearful, negative approach to what he's telling us. He's there to warn us, but actually he's there to give us a useful bit of information, which is about this feeling or thought that we've had. And then we just send him on his way. And then we can focus on the good stuff, like sitting there and having a drink with our mates. So does that kind of make sense?
I love that.
And then naturally, like, straight away, your behavior is elevated. You have fun with your friends. You feel more relaxed. You feel happy. You get dopamine hits, and like everything's like really positive. And so then that feeds positive thoughts, positive emotions, positive behavior patterns. So we've kind of just broken it. You can't. You said we're humans. We're always going to go back to those places where it's a bit deep and dark, and we're not fulfilling our goals and our ambitions and things like that, and the negative thoughts, feelings, and behaviors will pop in. That's okay, but the trick is not to spend time dwelling on it. Like, if you're pissed off with something or somebody, set yourself a timer, give yourself 5 minutes to be pissed off with them, move on. It's just not worth it.
Yeah, not worth your energy. I try and explain this to my 9-year-old when she's, having a bit of a grumble about something, like, look, Jemima, you've only got so much headspace. Imagine your headspace as a bar of Cadbury's chocolate. At the moment, you're giving away 6 of those chunks of that bar of chocolate to that headspace on that person. Stop it. Hold back. Maybe just give it 1 chunk of chocolate, and then give the rest of the chunk to playing with whatever you want to do today. I want to ask you something else, because you've used a turn of phrase that a lot of people use. It's quite popular now, but I want to actually specifically ask, what do you mean by putting it into the universe? Because I think that we hear it a lot now. And some people mean slightly different things by it. Some people might think, oh, is it what goes around comes around? If I'm nice to this person, will something good come back to me? If I send out 10 emails, will something eventually come back down the line? You personally, Robin Waite, what do you mean by putting it into the universe?
Yeah, well, I don't believe in manifestation, because manifestation
Mhm.
without action is just it's a dream, right? That's like wishing you're going to win the lottery without actually going out and buying the ticket. It's like, it
Mhm.
just doesn't work like that. But the thing is, when you actually project something out into the universe, i.e. say it, or
Mhm.
physically start to take action towards it, it is more likely that it is going to happen. You're just pushing the needle a little bit,
Mhm.
that way, in terms of creating success for yourself. I'm not particularly. So I mean, I went to, this is just a personal thing. I went to a cathedral school for 7 years over in Gloucester. So I've been brought up as a Christian, and we used to go into the cathedral 3 days a week, and but I've had all of that religious sort of indoctrination into me, but I'm not particularly religious. In fact, I probably go so far as to say I'm an atheist. But I do believe there is a higher power out there. But it's actually, I believe it's more about what is figuring out what's in your control and what's not in your control.
Mhm.
Okay, so that higher power is actually governed by you ultimately, and
Mhm.
if you have good ethical and moral, good ethical and moral compass, and you do the right thing. I always say that money is a byproduct of a job well done.
Mhm.
It's not a measure. It doesn't, just because you haven't made enough money doesn't necessarily mean you haven't done a good job.
Mhm.
But generally speaking, like, too many people go money first and then like fulfillment afterwards, as in
Mhm.
fulfillment with client work, for example. Whereas actually, I believe that, ethically, morally, with your core values and everything else, you should be put yourself out into the world to help as many people as you possibly can, irrespective of however much you get paid. It actually comes from the Japanese philosophy around, it's called ikigai. So
Mhm.
where they talk about vocation, passion, purpose, and profession. I think that's the right one.
Mhm.
So the idea is that you should have something that is vocational, that's of benefit to other people, not just yourself. Okay, but that you can also have a deep interest in it. It should have a sense of higher purpose. So it should be, you know, there to make, your goal should be to make the world a better place.
Mhm.
Professional, the professional side of it, you should make some money from it. That's okay. Um, and the thing is, like, there's the four corners of ikigai. You kind of need all four corners to achieve ikigai. The Japanese talk about achieving ikigai, and even when, for example, Japanese people retire, so say, for example, the vocation and maybe the profession side of things shifts for them, they don't just go, oh, okay, I'm done with those. There's a bit of a, I don't know whether it's a British or a Western culture thing, but we see retirement as like, right, I'm going to go traveling, or I'm just going to sit in my chair and, I don't
Mhm.
know, do you ever watch Netflix all afternoon, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
But the Japanese are very driven in so much that they'll be like, right, my vocation's changed, my professional side of things changed, because now I'm not earning money. So I'm going to go and find something else to fill up those two things. So it could be that their profession changes. Why? Then maybe they've got a retirement fund, so they don't need to earn money. So what I'll do is I'll go and work for a charity instead, or I'll go and work for a local school and teach the children. So they fill up these four pillars of ikigai all, throughout their life. I think it's a Western thing where we think, oh, I'll get to 60. What is it, 67 now? Because they put the age up, and I'll retire and stop working, and that's kind of the end of things. Like
I love that, the whole notion of actually you're continuing to be you, almost be, the word consultant comes to mind, but I don't quite like that word at the same time. But I also like the fact that we can become elders within our own community. And that if you've become an expert, you've grown up in this field, you've taught, you must have accumulated such a wealth of knowledge and experience. It actually feels immoral to stop. you know,
yeah.
there's so much wisdom to pass on and continue to share. And by cultivating that attitude, actually allows you to, continue life in a slightly different way. I really like it.
One of my I don't want this to be happy. I don't want it to be morose, but it's a really pertinent story, and this will just get people thinking about, like, let's achieve something big this year. Let's all agree right now that we're going to do something really big. But one of my mentors, a guy called Daniel Priestley, he's written 4 books. He's an Aussie. He's got a really unique perspective on the world, especially on the business world, around how we manage the empire part, build a part of the brain and ideas and things like that. And Dan is like a very big proponent of books. He said books is that for everybody has a book in them, and a book is a way of like leaving a legacy, whether it's just like that's you're putting something out into the universe physically that is just going to outlive you in some way, shape, or form. Other people, more well-known people, it could be a TV documentary or your podcast, or there's all these different things that you can put out there. But he said, so he's like a big fan of books, and he was the one who encouraged me to start writing as well, through one of his programs. And he told a very sad story last year. A very close friend of his who was in his early 40s had contracted COVID and ultimately ended up passing away. But for the 2 or 3 years prior to that, and getting to know Dan better, this guy kept on saying, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to write a book. And Dan kept on saying, well, you'd be selfish not to. It'd be like, because you've got so much good stuff to. And very sadly, this guy passed away having he'd started it but never finished a book. And Dan was just like, I miss my friend, and it's very sad for his family and things like that. But there's also this really powerful message that just isn't going to live on after him. And so many people put off, like, writing a book is a big deal. It's no small, I'm not playing down the fact that it's a year. It could take a year to write a book and get it published and things like that. It might be that you write the book and nobody ever buys it, or one person buys it. But even if that one person buys it and it transforms their life, like, surely that makes the world just a slightly better place, rather than being a passenger and taking so much from the world. Why aren't we just that little bit more generous with our ideas and our thoughts and things like that, and give them back to the world in some way, shape, or form? Like, so there are it's like yellow car syndrome. I've now said this, Faye. You will start to notice people in life who are just passengers. They're just there for the free ride. They're there just to keep on taking stuff from everybody else. It sounds very negative. But again, this is about procrastination, Pete. It's a similar sort of thing. Only these people are showing up, and we're manifesting them and bringing them into our lives in reality. Like, this year, make a pact with yourself that you're going to do something big. If you've got 5 people in your life who are negative, cut them out of your life. Don't have them in your life. Why hang out with people who are going to bring you down? Like, make a goal for yourself to go and find 5 amazing, positive people in your life. You probably already know them, and go and spend more time with them. Like, this stuff isn't rocket science. This is the stuff that makes you happy at the end of the day, and is ultimately going to lead to other people's happiness. I'm going on a bit of a rant here.
No, I'm loving it, Robin. It's fine. It's great. It's really.
I got a message before Christmas from amazing young woman who's kind of just starting out in business. She runs a dog grooming parlor. She got introduced to me by a mutual sort of connection, and got hold of a copy of Take Your Shot. This fills me up with joy. She got hold of a copy of Take Your Shot. She's fully booked in January.
Wow.
Brilliant. Best month ever for her. And I like all it's cost her is like $3.99 on Kindle or $9.99 for the paperback. In fact, she probably even got a free copy of Take Your Shot, for my website, right? And I don't care if she never becomes a client or not, as long as she keeps in touch. And she had the decency just to send me that message and say, Robin, I'm so grateful for the book. Look at my diary. She sent me a snapshot of a diary. She's like, fully booked in January, loads of dots all over it. And I was like, it just that fills me with joy. And I always say, like, because like so many business, I know I talk a lot about business. I'm a business owner, business coach is what I do. But so many people, when they go out and they've set their goals, they've worked out what activities are going to get them towards those goals. So, let's say you want to earn £100,000 this year, and the average price point of your widgets that you sell is £1,000. Well, you've got to find 100 clients to buy them. Most people will go out and they'll be like, they'll take anybody. I'll just go and find the first 100 people, take their money. Things will go wrong, and then they'll go, it was their fault, right? Now, me, if something goes wrong in my business, the one person who is responsible for that is me. Okay. There are things which are in my control within that, things which are out of my control within that, but ultimately the responsibility lies with me. And I would rather be poor, homeless, and destitute than take somebody's money when they're not a good fit for Fearless Business. But very sadly, I don't think not everybody carries that same sort of like moral and ethical compass. They put themselves first, not their prospective clients and their needs. And I think that's super important. That's the long version of the short version, which is if money is a byproduct of a job well done. If you do the job well, you'll get paid handsomely for it somewhere down the line. Whether it's like a week, a month, a year, 10 years down the line, you'll be paid back for it.
I absolutely love that, Robin. It's brilliant. And it's about not feeling guilty. I think we sort of, I don't know if it's a British thing particularly. I was going to say, I don't even know if it's a female thing. I think it doesn't matter what you are, really. A lot of people seem to be a bit like, oh, no, it's all right. There's a sort of slight awkwardness about money and actually having some positive mindset. And that, no, I'm worth it. I'm good at what I do. I'm giving back. And I deserve that. I want to pick up on a lovely comment we've had from Leslie, who's Leslie Waldron, fab friend of mine. Love the idea, and freelance mum, of thinking about our legacy and not wasting all the knowledge and experience I've gained. Last year, I had writing a book on my goals, but didn't get beyond an outline. You spurred me on to add this to my goals. Now, Leslie, one of the things that Leslie has also mentioned, and I think, Leslie, I saw you put it on Facebook, which I thought was a really great point, is that some people at the moment, Robin, what with the last couple of years, are struggling now with setting goals. They're a bit like, well, blinking Nora, I set goals in 2020. I set goals in 2021. I don't even know if I dare set goals in 2022. Will surviving just do? Hi, I'm still here. I'm in business. Will that do? Because I think we've all had to, we've pivoted. We've pivoted again. It's been a bonkers couple of years. Goal setting can therefore feel a bit nerve-wracking, actually.
Yeah, well, what you've alluded to there is kind of like the failure complex. Basically, it's like if you set a goal, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure. But the thing is, you need to be detached from the outcome. The goal is there as like a signpost. It's just there to guide us and to kind of, just to hopefully like point us in the right direction. It's not a definitive. If we hit it, great, we're a winner. If we don't hit it, we've lost out somehow. Again, a personal story, because I go through all of the ups and downs like every other business owner does. The year COVID hit, so what's that, 2020, and COVID hit, my intention for that year was that I was going to do, I do a lot of speaking engagements, interviews and things like that. But up until that point, I'd only spoken at the odd sort of big conference. And by big, I mean sort of in the region about 250 plus people. So biggish, that's a big conference, right? And so 2020, at the start of the year, I was like, right, I'm going to take this speaking thing more seriously. And I'm going to go and get myself booked onto a dozen big conferences. And I won't do it for free. It will be paid unless there's a great partnership opportunity or, something else. That's one a month. Okay. So by March 2020, I had already spoken at 2. I had been booked for 7. 4 of those were paid gigs in the order of several £1,000s. So ticking the box, goal going great. Was it March the 29th comes around and you've got Boris Johnson announcing that we're all about to be locked down and everything else? Fucking cried. I'm not afraid to admit it. I just it was like proper rug pull. I was just, and I was beaten up as a result of that, because I'd set out this big ambition, and then when I got over myself, I then realized, well, actually, I can either see this as a like be down and dejected about this and like take it personally, or I can find a way to kind of get through this and create some positivity. And yes, I said goodbye to quite a lot of revenue in that moment. Thankfully, I was able to. There was a couple of those conferences were like, "No, we're not going to do it now." And I was like, "Sure, you don't want to do that online? I can help you with that." So ended up securing at least 2 of them that otherwise wouldn't have gone ahead, because I then helped them get online using the Empire Builder bit of the brain. A couple of them did go by the wayside, but then equally, I had a moment of realization that I've done paper rounds since I was like 14. I've never had a gap year. I've never had really any big long holidays or gone traveling or really had any breaks in my life. I'd worked up until 2020. I'd pretty much worked for 24 years of my life, from paperboy up to through the systems analysis business, through the agency, through the coaching practice. And do you know what I did? I thought in 2020, when that all kicked off and the weather's nice outside, I thought, sod it, I'm going to give myself a break. And I did as little as possible that year. I don't mind admitting it. I just did as little as possible. And hey, presto, it was one of the best years, both personally and business-wise, that I'd ever had. When things started to right themselves last year, I didn't remember that. I went back into like creator mode. And I went to town, and I worked so hard last year to the point of burnout 2 or 3 times. So, and I don't mind cobbler's shoes. I'm a business coach. I talk to people about burnout sometimes these things are so close to you that you don't notice it until it happens. So this year I'm going to reverse it. I know I always have a busy January, and that's just a given. It's just that I've just got so much flow coming in. It's hard, you just have to manage the flow. But this year again is going to be another year of do as little as possible in the nicest possible way. Do create as much value as you can for people, but with as little effort. Harking back to 2020. And the thing is, like, 2020 happened, and the thing was, it was out of my control, and I think that's why I didn't remember it. When you actually consciously make a decision to do something, it's a very different experience, and it creates very different patterns in your, like, blueprints in your brain, basically. Reptile monkey brain, empire builder brain. There's different wires which are created when you choose to do something and when you're forced to do something. Because when you're forced to do something, typically, it's that's creating it. Okay. And when you're forced to do something from a place of fear, do you think your decisions are going to be good ones or bad ones? Inevitably, they might work out well, but because your back's against the wall and your focus is so narrowed, those decisions they're not terribly good ones. And here's the reason why. First order, this is going a bit deep, but first order consequence of those decisions normally turns out okay. When our back's against the wall and we're operating from a place of fear, it's the second and third order consequences that tend to be the ones that trip us up, the ones that we can't see because we haven't given ourselves time to slow down and think and figure out, well, if I do this, then this might happen, and this might happen, and this might happen. Do you see? So inevitably it starts off good, and then it tails off. So, and that ultimately, when the rug gets pulled, March the 29th or whatever it is, 2020, rug gets pulled, and I decided, right, I'm just going to not do anything. I literally didn't barely anything for 3 weeks because it was mostly going to be based around speaking and things like that. And I focused on my existing clients and made sure that they were all okay and not operating from fear, didn't panic, and we had a plan and a strategy. But that 3 weeks to think helped me figure out what those second, third, and fourth order consequences are going to be. But unfortunately, it came from that place of out of control. So then I just went back to being Robin in 2021 and kind of, my saboteurs start showing up, don't they?
Yeah, and it's good to hear. I mean, I've already used a ton of phrase, but as one that I like, we're all human, aren't we? And we are human, and we deal with things in very real ways. And actually, sometimes I'll never forget my midwife saying to me when I rocked up after having had Suki, my second daughter, and I was like, yeah, I've got this all, and she just said, you need to take your Wonder Woman cloak off. Even Wonder Woman takes her cloak off. Otherwise it'll all hit you. And I was just, no, it's my second child. I don't need any help. I've absolutely got this. But actually, take your Wonder Woman cape off is something that has always stayed with me. And I think it's quite important to remember that we are still all human, and even Wonder Woman takes her cape off some days. Before we finish, Robin, and it's been absolutely amazing talking to you, and I'm sure that people are watching this feeling energized and just like, wow, that's so much. I'm kind of I'm saturated and possibly a little bit overwhelmed. If there's one thing that they can do after watching this today, what can they do? What's the first thing they could do?
Well, so we talked a lot about goal setting and things like that, and what's going to derail you from achieving those goals. But there's a mountain in America called El Capitan. Okay, and it's a vertical rock face, and even for experienced climbers, it actually takes 3 days to climb up this mountain. Okay, because it's so complicated. They even have to pitch tents hang tents off the side of the mountain, to stay overnight, and then they start climbing again. I think the world record, the fastest guy to do it is I think it took him 16 or 17 hours or something non-stop from top to bottom. And I mean, that's insane, doing anything for that period of time, but let alone going vertical. So most people, what they do with their goals is they kind of make their goals and they walk up to the face of El Capitan and look up and they're like, whoa, that's way too overwhelming. Especially if you're not an experienced climber as well, which most business owners are stepping out into the unknown when they set their goals for themselves, because that's what they're there to overachieve, to stretch us. So actually what's much better as an analogy is you break it down into manageable steps. So if the goal is to get 20 new clients this year, for example, Well, let's work that backwards. Actually, 20 new clients, God, that's quite overwhelming. I've got to speak to so many people, and I've got to do all this stuff I've got to do, and these events and these lead magnets, and the website and the branding and we spin ourselves up. So actually what we do is we just work it backwards, and we go, right, well, that's like 1 to 2 clients a month. That feels more manageable. Could I do like 5 to 8 consultations that are going to get me those 1 to 2 clients each month? What do I need to do in order to get 5 to 8 consultations this month? Well, probably go into a bit of networking. Cool. I can go and book myself onto 4 networking meetings. So all we do is we just build these little stepping stones, little steps that gradually work our way up to the peak of El Capitan. And the most important thing is most people will carry on just building more steps. They won't get to the top of El Capitan and look back and go, holy shit, look what I've achieved. We don't, because we just carry on. That's what we're designed. The empire builder brain just carries on building an empire. But actually, sometimes it's really important just to look back at like what you have achieved. Actually, what's going to best inform you about what may work this year in terms of achieving your goals. And I know we talked about, past, present, and future, may actually be to just look back over the past year and just look at the amazing work which you did. One of the best quotes I ever heard was, we overestimate what we can achieve in a month and we underestimate what we can achieve in a year. If you go back and do an audit of last year, you'll think, holy cow, I can't believe I did that much. And then it's like, right, well, if I can do that, I've got this.
Yeah. So do an audit, go and do an audit, and what you actually achieved last year, take a moment, look at it and think, actually, I'm good. I'm really good at what I do, and I want to do more of this, and I deserve to get paid for this as well. There's a comment that's just come in, Robin, from Madeline, and she said, loving it, and thank you so much to Amy Richards, who we also know as Amy Box, who flagged it up. Have made notes on a very small piece of paper I had to hand. I'll now decipher it and do a live later with the key messages I want to take forward. Good for you. Really pleased to hear that, Maddie, and best of luck with your goal setting this year. Listen, Robin, it's been fabulous speaking to you again today. It really has been ace. If anyone wants to get a copy of your book, how can they do that? Because it is an awesome book, isn't it?
Yeah, well, if you fancy donating something into my beer fund, then you can go and grab it on Amazon. Obviously, take your shot. And there's a couple of chapters in there actually specifically about goal setting, and then it kind of shifts gears into the productizing and pricing side of things. So you can be generous, donate some beer tokens. I'd love that, and it also helps the Amazon algorithm as well. Or if you would like a signed copy, some people aren't fussed either way, but if you would prefer a signed copy, just head on over to fearless.biz/TYS for Take Your Shot, and I'll happily gift you a signed copy as well if you're happy to leave an Amazon review.
Super. Listen, Robin, it's been awesome speaking to you. It always has been. Thank you so much for your time today, and have an amazing 2022.
You too. Wishing you all the best, everybody, for 2022. Go and smash it. You've got this.
You're